Okay, we are going on with the next talk. Now we are going to leave a bit the development level and going one floor higher to see how can you scale and provide technology flow that is able to face a lot of changes for your business. And I'm super happy that Rodrigo Neves made the way from Berlin to here. Thanks to you and your company for traveling here. So applause for Rodrigo.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by today. First of all, let me just give you a quick disclaimer that I'm not going to talk about technology. I know this is a technology conference. That's not the point of this talk. Don't be fooled by rocket ships. There's a lot of things that go into a rocket ship. I'm also by no means expert in any of these, right? So I'm just going to share with you some lessons that I learned over the last few years, some issues that we faced, and hopefully kind of highlight some things that you guys never thought of. And then I'll leave you with some examples of some more resources for you guys to follow up, read more if you're interested, and yeah, happy to discuss it a little bit more with some of you afterwards. Since we only have half an hour, I'm not going to go very deep into all of this. Just going to skim through the very shallow level. First order of business. How do I change the slide? So that's when technology fails. Huh. So why am I here? Actually, a funny story. I was kind of my path until getting to GetYourGuide, where I'm working now, is very similar to a lot of you guys here. I see a lot of familiar faces. I actually chose the most vintage logos that I could find for each of these entities where I was involved, except for, I think, the university is fairly recent. But, so I studied here in the University of the Algarve. I was involved in a very early stage in the formation of the Students' Association in our faculty. And then I worked with Dangan, well, at the stage that it wasn't really a proper company yet. And then later on, working with some of you guys on the co-working space that we founded, and even the geek sessions that the Votum team kind of have been infusing now with the new energy. But about 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to learn a little bit more, and I took a leap of faith and decided to join a very small startup in Berlin that's called GetYourGuide. At the time, I joined as a full-stack web developer, pretty much doing everything. We were a small team. In the meantime, during these 4 years, we grew quite a lot, and I've been through a series of teams and roles, and I'm currently a director of engineering in charge of two major groups, one that deals with supplier technology and the other one with mobile apps or native apps. What is GetYourGuide? Does anyone here, has anyone heard of GetYourGuide here? Except the ones that know me. So GetYourGuide, we are a marketplace for in-destination tours and activities, right? We sell, or we aggregate and sell everything that you can do when you go to a destination, when you travel. You go somewhere to experience something, you go to GetYourGuide and you find it all aggregated. You can purchase there. You can use our apps to check in, and off you go. We aggregate. We're currently one of the biggest players in the vertical. We have over 30,000 things. This is a constantly changing number, so I'm not even sure if that's up to date. All over the world, we have a global reach. And when I joined back in 2013, we were kind of somewhere between these two phases. we had a great idea, or the founders had a great idea. They were a small team. They had a moment of enlightenment, and they decided to try something out. They had no idea if it was going to work or not, but it sounded pretty cool. When I joined, we were working on building an actual product that we could scale, that we could sell, that we could like reach as many people as possible. And we ended up creating a great product, hopefully not by accident, not entirely by accident, but we made some right choices along the way, and we created something great. And what happened after that, after a couple of years building this product, was that we realized that we actually found a huge opportunity. There's a massive untapped market on travel, tours, and activities. There's a lot of companies growing crazy in the travel industry, like the Booking.coms of the world that deal with accommodation, the Airbnbs. But no one was doing anything on travel, on tours and activities. Massive opportunity. So we saw that opportunity and we decided to do something about it, right? And here's where the rocket ship comes, sorry. We decided to aggressively scale it. We decided to grab that opportunity as fast as possible to build a global scale that would allow us to follow our vision. I'll go more into that a little bit later. Don't worry too much about the details of the slides. It's mostly just for illustration. Most of them just stolen from Google. But this is what I mean, right? So here you have like just to give you kind of a overall impression of what I mean by a rocket ship. We're talking about exponential growth in a very, very short time span. Talking about 5 years, in this case 4 years since I've joined the company. And we more than double every year. And that doesn't come by accident. You need to actively invest in it. And it actually has a term. It was coined by Reid Hoffman. He was the founder of PayPal and later LinkedIn, and nowadays pretty much a board member of every other company. And he coined this term about blitzscaling. Blitzscaling means you actively invest and push to grow really, really, really quickly and gain a dominant position in a global market at a global scale. So this sounds great, right? But what does it actually feel like? And that's what I want to talk to you about. So blitzscaling actually doesn't feel that great. It's very hard to have an efficient management architecture for the growth. You burn a lot of capital, so you need to keep investing. We move fast, we break things all the time, every day. Everything that you solved yesterday doesn't even make sense anymore. Things change, we find new things, we learn new things about the market, about the opportunity. And we are forced to be incredibly focused and prioritize aggressively. Reid Hoffman, on the interview that he gave about blitzscaling, he has a sentence that I think summarizes it very well about what does it feel like. Basically, you throw yourself off a cliff. And then while you're falling, you need to somehow figure out how to build a plane. And that's what it feels like. Mortality puts priorities into sharp focus. I think it's a brilliant way of putting it. It's make it or break it. So why do we even do that? I mean, yes, there's a great opportunity. There's also great risk. We might just be spending our times. Doesn't feel great, so sometimes we're always out of our comfort zone. We're always trying new things. There's a lot of uncertainty. So why do we even bother to do this? Well, in the case of Getcha Guide, the reason why we bother to do this is because we have a vision, and we believe that we can have a very, very big impact in the world. And one of the things that fundamentally aligns us is that we believe that great lives are made of great experiences. And this is something that you might hear across, or might feel across the board on everything that we do. Because of that, we define our vision. since great lives are made of great experiences, what GetYourGuide can do within that is we can turn trips into amazing experiences. That's ultimately what we want to do. And that's my intro. Sorry, I'm trying to go very fast to give some room for questions because I think it's going to be the most interesting part of this all. What I really want to talk to you about today is the organizational challenges, some organizational challenges that we went through. I try not to touch too much technology, but every now and then it might come up. But I want to talk about organization, and in this context, right? The purpose of organization is to actually facilitate things. It's not to add like roles and titles and someone has to be promoting or whatever. No, that's not the point. The point is we need to somehow figure out how to reduce overhead. And organization comes with that purpose. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is, and this is the original quote, has nothing to do with organizations. It was talking about statistical models, but there is no one solution fits all. You can look at, there are lots of companies that grew or that went through hypergrowth that they have incredibly long and detailed blog posts about the culture and organization and how they built and how they transform. It's all great. A lot of them are useful, but none of them is going to fit your problem. And that was one of the hard learnings. Another thing that is normally confused, it's very often confused, is organizational structure and reporting structure. So the fact that my manager is X or Y doesn't mean that I have to work with him every day. So the organizational structure focuses on delivering value. You want to have the leanest organization that you can so that we enable people to deliver value to the customer with as least overhead as you can. This overhead we'll talk a little bit more about later on. It normally comes in the form of communication. Reporting structure, on the other hand, is an entirely different part. It has to do with people management, line management, growing people, establishing career paths and retention systems. I'm not going to talk about reporting structure on this. That would be a whole new talk that I'm not going to dive into. Let's go a little bit on those three stages that I mentioned earlier. What does it actually mean? So we always had the vision, right? We want to turn trips into amazing experiences. In the startup beginnings, in the very beginnings of the company, we had no idea what strategy was. There was no strategy. It was like, well, let's build like something and see if we can test some product, maybe it works. Was few people sitting around the table, very easy to talk to each other, very easy to align, everyone is in sync. Everyone does everything, from answering calls, from pissed off customers to coding to designing. It doesn't matter. We just need to put something out there. Then we evolve into something a little bit more structured. You actually develop something and you start developing a strategy as well. Okay, this is cool. We can do something with it. Let's bring all the tours and activities of the world online. This was one major problem, that there is no one that does this. And we think this will help us achieve our vision. Start hiring more people, tens of people sitting usually in the same floor, same building. Everyone does kind of everything, but normally you start kind of somehow splitting into groups. So customer service, the engineers don't need to do customer service anymore, and you start hiring a little bit more specialized people and not so many generalists. And then comes the hypergrowth. Hypergrowth means you're growing within the last few years at a pace of you're doubling or more. This means that we found a niche that we want to unlock, right? And our strategy becomes more ambitious. By the way, this is not the actual strategy. I just put it up there because it sounds nice. We'll fundamentally transform and shape the travel industry of the future. Very ambitious. We'll change the world. Start getting hundreds, thousands of people all over the world, distributed offices, Uh, be it engineering, operational, there are many models, but you have a mix of both specialists and generalists and lots of teams to work together. And that's when it becomes hard. Communication, don't bother reading that, seriously, that's too long. What happens is, or summarizing this, what it means is that the more people you throw to a problem, the more people that needs to be kept in sync, that need to communicate to each other and be aligned on what is the goal, what are we doing, which part of the code are you touching, specifically for engineering. And this is kind of a combinatorial problem, right? The more it starts growing really like crazy. And to illustrate it a little bit, I actually just stole this from the book when I was writing the slides yesterday. So it's just a picture. But I thought this kind of represented very well visually, very quickly, what I mean. So this is a kind of a typical waterfall methodology. So ideas come from somewhere high above, and then there's a product manager that specs it out, and then there's design, whatever. So there's a bunch of steps, and through each of these steps you need to align. And that alignment requires you talk to those people, you communicate, you give them feedback, you receive directions. The more people you add in the middle, the more people you have to align. That is not very scalable. That slows us down a lot. You often hear from engineers saying, oh, we have so many meetings. So annoying. We need to talk with the designer and the product manager, and it takes forever. And my whole day was meetings that I didn't code anything. That's not what we want, because engineers are very expensive, right? We want them to code. So we need to change that. So I'll share with you a few lessons that we learned through the process. And my intention is not to be very polemic or anything. We'll go into each of them very quickly. Hopefully there is still time. But this is by no means an extensive list. There's a lot more things to get out of it. First one, Agile is dead. How many people here do Agile? This is not me. I didn't say that, by the way. I'm quoting someone. The problem is people are doing Agile. Agile is not a name. It's not something that you do. Agile is an adjective. You should be Agile. You should not do Agile. It's not about the process. It's not about doing stand-ups every morning, doing sprint plannings, and doing retrospectives. If you don't learn and iterate on it, you're not being Agile, really. Last year, Dave Thomas, one of the co-authors of the so-called Agile Manifesto, that he hates that name because that's not the actual name of the manifesto. The full name is the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. It's not Agile Manifesto. That was coined to basically be easier to sell. And he went all over the world and lots of conferences with this talk. I'll share the slides then later, and you can have a look at it, where he is incredibly pissed on what has become of Agile, because that was not the point of the manifesto. Fundamentally, what it means is you determine where you are, you take a step towards your goal, you reassess, and you iterate. That's Agile. Everything else, stand-ups, meetings, processes, drawings, charts, continuous integration, TDD, BDD, whatever, those are tools that might help solve some of your problems. There's hundreds of things, literally, that you can look at. This is not the full list. A lot of buzzwords and terms that came up around Agile. Some of them, honestly, don't even mean that much. But the reality is that it's a tool set that you should pick and use whatever makes sense. You should try things, iterate, learn if it optimizes or not. If it doesn't, drop it, try something else. The idea is we keep learning, we keep iterating. So Agility is the ability to respond rapidly by applying useful practices and principles to the right situations. It's not about the process, it's about the people. Second lesson that we learned a lot is purpose and goals. So once you start growing a team, it's very easy for, or several teams in this case, it's very easy for people to not even know anymore why are they doing this? What's the goal? This is actually something that I had the chance to talk with a few of you today. Some people assume that it's okay to just not know why we're doing this. When you're growing at the pace that we are, you need to know why we're doing this. Why is your work important? Because we rely on everyone to make critical decisions for the business every day. We use data as an empowering tool for people to make informed decisions. But we also use a lot of our gut feeling, hypotheses. We test them, we learn, we iterate. So we use a method of objectives and key results. That's also a very common framework that's used, I think it was started in Google at some point, or Intel or something, don't even remember, with the purpose of aligning teams. So every team, and in some cases to the individual level, have objectives, measurable, trackable objectives. We establish them every quarter, and we iterate on them. And that goes from the company level, from the executive level, all the way down to each individual in the company. And it is a process. It takes a while to set up, but the benefits of it and the iteration, the learnings that we get from it, and the focus, especially, that we get from it, is incredibly powerful and lets us run really, really fast. With all of this, it comes to people always ask, okay, then if the objectives are set at the company level, and then basically I don't have any autonomy, I can't decide what I do. No, actually no. We believe in high autonomy. We give you a goal, you figure out how to do it. We empower the teams to make those decisions, right? Say we have a team, for example, working on optimizing the conversion rate of the store, of the website. So their goal is to figure out ways to improve how people buy stuff. Pretty straightforward goal, right? And the OKR could be something like, okay, during this quarter, we're going to do experiments. We use a lot of A/B testing to validate our hypothesis. And we believe we can grow conversion rate on our store by X%. That would be an example of an OKR, an objective. And then it's up to the team to figure out how to get there. That's the autonomy part. So we use OKRs for high alignment, and then we let the teams run with autonomy. And all of this comes together when we start thinking of mission teams. Mission teams are small contained units. It's a lot of other companies and frameworks, they call it delivery teams as well. Lots of small, self-sufficient, cross-functional teams that have all the resources they need to deliver most of their work to production. Pretty straightforward, right? No dependencies, you don't need to sync with others. Of course, that's a perfect world. In reality, it's really not possible to have zero dependencies. Otherwise, you would be a company of your own, which could be. You could have a spin-off at some point. The idea is, or there's a rule of thumb that says, okay, if you can deliver 95% of your backlog to production without even asking anyone else outside the team, then you're considered truly self-contained. And that's what we aim for. It's not that straightforward. It's not that black and white. Happy to discuss it a little bit more in depth later on. But that's the overall the idea. And while doing this, while iterating on this, we tried many different things over time, and we came up we initially started by defining teams around technologies. That's a very common pattern, right? So you have a backend team and a front-end team and an Android team, for example. That's great, but then there were a lot of dependencies because the front-end team actually wanted to change something in the booking flow, and then they needed the back-end team to change the API, and then the DevOps team to deploy it, or something like that. So the dependencies were still there, and the communication overhead was still there. So we had to iterate on that quite a few times, and we came up kind of to this, or came down to these three major types of mission teams. We have the platform teams. They are basically focused on building up the infrastructure and the tooling that empowers all the other teams. They're normally very domain, they have a lot of domain expertise. They're very good at specific areas. Examples of these are, for example, we have a very big and strong data engineering team because the whole company relies on data, not just to set the goals every quarter, but every day we look at data. So data engineering is a support team, a platform team that supports all the other verticals of the company. Then we have feature teams. These are more commonly more commonly known ones. That are, you have a team that is responsible for one particular part, one particular business part. So we could have, for example, a web team that takes care of our web marketplace. We could have a supply tech team that works on supply-related technology projects. And they normally own what we consider core features, so core parts of our system, core blocks that they might interact with the others, but by themselves, they're big enough to justify one team working on them. We try to reduce, these are the teams that are most independent, other than relying on platforms for building up tools. They're usually very self-contained, and they normally have, like, product manager is a common feature in that team, backend engineers, front-end engineers, depends a little bit on what they're working on, search specialists, sometimes even a copywriter if they're somehow playing with content, right? We try to make sure that all the skill sets that are required to deliver that mission are contained within the feature, within the mission team. And then we have what we call strategy teams. Strategy teams are teams that are a bit more volatile, or can be a bit more volatile. Since we rely a lot on trying new things, experimenting, learning and iterating on it, a lot of the things that we try actually don't work. Most of the things that we try don't work. But that's okay. That's part of the exploration. So what we do is sometimes we build small teams, we give them autonomy and alignment and let them run, explore, go deep into a problem, try to solve it. And if they do solve it, great. If they don't, well, we learn, see what happened. There's always the question, okay, do we still believe this is the way? Let's try 1 quarter more, let's try 2 months more, whatever it takes. It's not the way, okay, great. We dissipate the team, fall back into other teams, we keep iterating, keep building new ones. The only reason why we do these short-lived ones is, as I said before, focus is key. And if we start just exploring bigger projects within one of the feature teams, what normally happens is that they just get overloaded with the regular backlog of those teams, right? So if you really, really, really are serious about going deep into a problem, we separate. We create a unit for that. Last but not least, all of these teams, everyone in Getcha Guide, focus on delivering value. Doesn't matter what you're doing every day if you don't deliver value to the customer. So we are obsessed about our customers. We are customers ourselves. That's one commonality between all Getcha Guide employees is that we all love travel. We all travel a lot. Some people every weekend, they're traveling somewhere. We're in Berlin, it's very easy to move around. Visit Europe, there's cheap flights everywhere, there's Ryanair, it's great. we travel a lot. We try our product. Everyone uses our product when traveling. And we feel what it is to be a customer. That gives us an incredible insight on what it actually is that people look for it. Another one is customer value is way bigger than technology. Don't care if you use PHP. I mean, it's not that black and white. Don't care if you build your own ORM. It's also a possibility, as long as we're delivering value, when we deliver value every single day. It's not about continuous integration. It's not about TDD, BDD, whatever you want to use. It's not about the process. It's about delivering value. And it happens that different teams use different processes. That's fine. Each team has the tool set available, and they can pick whatever makes more sense. And it's not that we don't make explicit decisions on which technology to use. Of course we do. Of course, before we jump into a new technology, we analyze, we discuss it within our chapters, within the different stakeholders, definitely. Because it will, ultimately what we need to know is, if we do an investment in technology, is it going to enable us to deliver faster, more customer value in the future? And the answer might be, well, actually it doesn't matter, which is, in most cases, doesn't matter. Or the answer might be, yes, definitely. If we do this in Python instead, it's actually going to be a lot faster, which happen in some particular areas. For example, in marketing technology, Python is a very powerful tool, mostly because it has a really good tool set of libraries that help you to manipulate numbers very quickly. So it's not, the focus is not about technology. The focus is about customer value. We use technology, of course. We make explicit decisions on technology, but we are customer-centric. I'll leave you with some more reading. These people actually know a lot more about this than what I'm talking about. This is a great book that was just launched recently, a couple months ago. And it's a book that I wish I had read 3 years ago, because it actually covers most of the issues that we went through. And it's basically, even David and Alexander kind of co-authored it, but it's actually a collection of stories from a lot of real-world scenarios, a lot of companies that we deal with. It's also very Berlin-focused, which is refreshing. It's not about US. But it also does have American companies in there. And then The Mythical Man Month and The Pragmatic Programmer, I think these are books that every software engineer should read anyway, sooner rather than later. Hopefully, this is one of those books that it should be handled in the university and not afterwards. I'll share the slides with you, with everyone later, so you can. There's a lot of references and books and stuff. You can look into them. That's it. Thank you. Please do give me some feedback, because it's the first time that I'm trying this talk, and I would like to know how to learn and iterate. Iterate. Questions?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That's pretty interesting. Because actually, it's complementary to my talk that I'm just about to hold. What I was about to ask is, how large are your teams? What sizes of teams do you have?
The mission teams.
Any team, yeah. Your mission teams, yeah.
So there are many theories about what's the ideal size. It actually really depends. We try to keep them, so because the goal is to keep the communication overhead small, we don't want to add a lot of people. We want to make them lean and fast.
So you have a maximum?
A maximum would be probably around 7-8 people. But teams can be as small as 2 people. Yeah. I would really stay away from having a one-man team, because, and that's also kind of part of the rationale on the 6 to 10 people, this kind of rule of thumb, which is you don't want to have a single point of failure, right? If someone is sick or leaves the company or just goes on holidays, then the team is stopped, right? So that's kind of, normally you have or what I've seen so far is you have two to four specialties that you kind of need for a team to be fast. And you should always try to aim to have at least 2 people for each specialty. It's not always it's not always like that. For example, product managers. I mean, I don't want to have 2 product managers on a team, right? But it's okay if you basically make sure that empower the team to survive without a product manager, right? So most of the work is actually the team is autonomous. The product manager is there just to facilitate. So if the people are trained in the right way and you build the default skill set, then it's sometimes okay to not have like a double pair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very reasonable. Yeah. How long did it take you to build those self-contained teams? Because usually people are not used to that, to work like that, or they were not used to work like that, and so sometimes can take a while to actually get people to that point.
We're not done. We're not done. It's an ongoing work, and we're hiring a lot of people. We're building more teams. We're scaling, so it's a constant work. It's a lot about. One of the things that enables us to move to build these teams faster is we have a very strong culture that we invest in that empowers these kind of behaviors. And when we hire, for example, culture, having the right culture, the right mindset is one of the key factors on joining Get Your Guide, because we want to look for people that can hit the ground running, right? We want people that, even if they haven't worked on this before, we know that they will understand and catch on. And that's where I think culture plays a very big role in accelerating this creation. It might also have the flip side of slowing down your hiring, but then it's always a balance that you need to find. Any other questions?
Who are your competitors, and what's your tech stack?
So competitors, there are many, most of them small players. The biggest competitor that we have at the moment is TripAdvisor. Not directly the main TripAdvisor business that we all know, but they acquired, 2 years ago, they acquired our biggest competitor, that is an American company called Viator. There are other players. Another one that is pretty prominent is Expedia. It's also a pretty big. They have one unit that focuses on tours and activities, but they're not really pushing it too hard. It's not their core business. So in terms of independent players, we are the biggest one. Then there are like specialized niche, some other specialized niche players. In terms of tech stack, it really depends on the team. We have so many technologies in place to solve different problems, right? It's in the end, it's like you look at this big tool set and you use whatever makes sense. In terms of the core, it's PHP. We use a lot of Symfony, but not restricted to that. Anyone else? Yeah.
Maybe a last question. How
Yep.
many developers you have, and how many different offices around the world, or the developers mainly sitting in the Berlin office?
So we have currently about 40 developers. They split between Berlin and Zurich. We do have about 14 offices around the world, but they're most of them are operation offices, sales and operations. In terms of technology, we have these two core development centers, where the majority of it is currently in Berlin.
Okay. Okay, one last question.
Assuming you were like not a recent company, but a stale one, how can a stale, how can I ask this? how does a stale company start improving, start getting more dynamic? What would you say are the first few steps to take if you want to take a change?
Number one, determine where you are.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
That's the first thing that you need to do. You need to be aware of where are your problems. And in most cases, the problems are actually very, very obvious. Just people don't talk about them. So that's the first step that you need to do. And then pick one, try to fix it. See the effect. Try to apply one of the tools, one of the many tools. Try to optimize one small part. Learn what was the impact and then repeat. You're not going to be able to fundamentally change everything overnight. That is just not possible. Unless you close the company, start from scratch, which I suppose you don't want to do. I wouldn't advise that. But yeah, do it in small iterations, small steps. And the most important thing is awareness. Try to talk with people within the company and figure out what are the bottlenecks. You'll realize that most of them are actually within communication or too much overhead in process, most of the times. So start with those, because those are common problems, and there are a bunch of tools that you can already start trying to implement and experiment, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, just a small question.
Yep.
For what I understand, you have just a preset of tools for the teams. So imagine, for example, if you have a problem and you have a team who can resolve that problem without your tools. You have another tools. How is the political of the company? If they block that idea for new tools, or it's open for new tools? How the company feels about that?
So as I said, because we rely a lot on autonomy of the teams, most of the cases the team is empowered to try out whatever makes sense to them. The point is they have a goal. Each team has a goal, and we expect the teams to deliver towards that goal. We don't care what tools they use, what processes they use. Okay. We encourage people to try things, fail, and learn. So if someone in the team decides, okay, actually to solve this, I think this would be a great idea. Normally what happens in a typical case is you bring it up to the team, you discuss about it, and if you get enough buy-in from the team, you'll just go and do it, test it, and learn, and see if it actually fixes. What happens in a lot of those cases, that's actually how we disseminate a lot of new things within the company. It starts somewhere, someone plants a seed, and then if it's a really powerful tool, it kind of starts spreading to the other teams. We have other tools that we use to do that in terms of communication and spreading knowledge. That I'm not going to go into too much. I don't know if here there's any. No, they don't. None of them is explained there. But there are communication tools that allow you to just spread knowledge, and like demo sessions, and we have what we call tech talks every week, where we all just get together and talk about something that we did and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rodrigo.
Thank you.
For coming here.